Excellent. I think I kind of mentioned this a little bit too, but our, just from the minimal kind of deals that we've been able to work through, because we've only been able to with the amount of funding we have, kind of do one deal at a time. So we have some experience with gap funding and with EMD and with Gator lending, and so we were actually chatting this morning about how, we've listened to some of Pace's videos on the Morby method, but we like in practice haven't been through it start to finish. And so kind of what has kind of brought you to do that over the seller finance, aside from maybe just the quicker turnaround, I suppose?
Yeah, so I wouldn't even say it's a quicker turnaround. I actually think Morby methods are really cool, and I think they're a little bit underutilized as a fix and flip acquisition strategy. That I can go off on like a tangent about like why I think that's awesome. But the reason I like Morby methods, the way that the community, I personally think that the Morby method is the number one acquisition strategy that the community, like Subto community, gated community, etc., had to come together and figure out how to do it without a lot of instruction. Seller finance, like most title companies can handle a seller finance transaction without much help. Subto, there's a lot of instruction about doing Subto, right? There's a ton of instructions about doing Subto. There's not a lot of instruction in the Kajabi Vault or anywhere else about like doing a Morby method. And so it's something the community at large kind of wanted to figure out. And basically it was just a bunch of TCs and a bunch of gators and a bunch of operators going out and getting these things under contract and trying to figure out how to do them correctly in ways that like aren't violating like laws and stuff like that, because you're very borderline committing fraud sometimes if you don't do it right.
Right.
I draw my pen. So the reason I like Morby methods is they are low capital input and have the potential to cash out at closing. And so the risk to earnest money, for example, is a lot lower, in my opinion, is a lot lower on a Morby method, because if you get it to close, as long as your loan to value is kind of where you expected it to be, you can manipulate it so that, or you can negotiate it rather, so that you're actually receiving money back at closing, which includes your earnest money and your down payment and your closing costs and a bunch of extra. And so that's why I like Morby methods. It's basically like you can get into it with zero money out of pocket. It's a way to kind of, if you're breaking even as a long-term rental or whatever your exit strategy is on that property, you can basically reinvest the money that you've borrowed for it to do another one. I can take, I have a fourplex that I'm closing on in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I was direct to seller. It's a Morby method. I have a fourplex that is going to cash out about $40K at closing. I can take that $40K and go buy a fix and flip. And I borrowed that $40K and I'm paying like 7% annualized on that $40K. I can go do a fix and flip with that $40K and make another $40K on the flip. And then now I have $80K and I basically got both those houses for free, free. And so for me, it's kind of a way it kind of multiplies the available capital and allows you to, it's a really good scalability tool. I wouldn't say you should build an entire portfolio on them, just because at the end of the day, they are over leveraged if you do that, right? And a lot of these Morby methods, you cannot sell for like 7 years because there's just too much debt on them, right?
Right.
Unless you like to negotiate the debt down or something, but you realistically can't sell them for 7 years, even if you tried. And so for me, it's like, okay, what is the intent? Like, one, want to make sure that I'm breaking even as a rental, or that if I'm losing money as a rental, it's worth it, right? I talked to somebody about this last night. If I'm getting $100,000 at closing, I can be okay with losing a couple $100s a month, because, in like 3 years, that a couple $100s a month will be breaking even. And I've made, presumably, if I'm smart, I've made that $100K turn into a lot more than whatever I lost so it's definitely a risk analysis. And you kind of have to approach each deal as like the buyer. You have to approach it as like, what are you actually using the leverage for? Because you don't have to over leverage it. If you get the seller to carry 40 and you get a DSCR loan for 70, that 10% covers like closing costs, you're only a little bit over leveraged. You can sell that in 5 years. If you get the seller to carry 40 and you get an 80% loan to value loan, now you have like a 15%, 10 to 15% overage, which is great. But what are you going to do with it? So really, it's just a matter of like, what's your plan for the excess? But that's I really like Morby methods because they're scalable. They are as a tool, they're scalable as a tool, and it allows you to basically multiply your efforts of like, if I want to have X number of doors in 5 years, my limit is basically how many Morby methods can I cash out of to go buy more doors. So